That's probably the beginning of my musical upbringing. I think that this was most likely one of the first cases where I really dug into a band. And that is mainly why I wanted to make this video, because Porcupine Tree and Steven Wilson, for an extension for that, I don't really think I really listen to that stuff anymore like I used to. But I did wanted to make this video because this band was pretty significant in my upbringing, or in my musical journey development, as you would call it. That is mainly because this band got recommended to me by Cover Killer Nation, who is also an influence on me. But yeah, I saw that Porcupine Tree was like his all-time favorite band, so I was like, oh, are they that good? And you know, whether it's good or not, it's really a matter of taste. It's kind of an acquired taste, you can almost say. But yeah, whether you like Porcupine Tree or not is a subjective take. Like with most bands, I would say. You could argue that some bands are like objectively great, but there doesn't really exist a band like that. I just think it's greater shit, but that's my opinion. And yeah, Porcupine Tree was pretty significant in the upbringing of my taste, of my musical journey. I would listen to a band, and I think that this was really one of the first bands where I really just fell in love with the band itself. Where I was like, oh, I keep going back to this one, so it should be, that is a good thing or something, or that's special, right? Something like that. Um, recently I did try to get back into Porcupine Tree because this was really a band where I thought that I would like it again if I try to listen to it, because I've played this band to death, honestly, whenever I think last decade even, or I think maybe about around 2019, 2020, when I was like still living in a small town with my mom, and I would like take our dog out to hike or just to take him out. I would just go into the forest and just listen to The Sky Move Sideways, Signify, Stupid Dream. All those like early to mid era Porcupine Tree albums, and I would just absolutely love it. I still think that I enjoy those albums, but I don't really return to them nowadays because I don't really think that they add a significant value to my music listening experience. To elaborate on that, basically what I mean is that, you know, Porcupine Tree is like a prog rock band that later impose, or like they added metallic elements into their music. So they are one of those fringe bands that you're not really sure if it's rock or metal. I personally would call Porcupine Tree a rock band, but if you do say they're metal, then I think you've only heard the In Absentia era up until the incident, Fear of Black Planet. That later era, basically the ending of their career. And I have to be honest that I know that they've released a new album, or recent album, as you would call it. I think it was called Closure slash Continuation. And I think I've heard like one or two songs, and I was just like, this is boring as fuck. So I just didn't continue listening to it. I think it's kind of the same thing as Fear Inoculum by Tool. But I would probably, I will say that the Tool album is a bit more atmospheric, and you can kind of throw that shit on, if you want to study or something or want to relax. Then I think that Fear Inoculum will work because it still has that tribal meditative vibe that Tool has, and that's, I think, their best quality. That meditation kind of vibe that they have. But Porcupine Tree always sounded a bit contrived, a bit concentrated, a bit pretentious, maybe. And I'm saying that because Steven Wilson is kind of an arrogant bastard, as you can call it. He's not on Morrissey's level, but he's definitely he definitely has a chip on his shoulder, or how you would say it. He definitely has a bit of an ego, but I think that's a good thing. For musicianship, that gives you personality, that gives your music personality. So I think that is a good thing. But sometimes the music can be a bit too sappy or cliche or like corny and shit. Like when I looked up reviews for Fear of a Blank Planet, back in the day I was like, oh, this is the best album ever, right? But now when you look up reviews on like Rachel Music, like people are cringing at the Xbox is a god to me, that lyric. And I'm just kind of like, I think it's cute. I think it's cute that Steven Wilson thinks that's technology destroys, the childhood of millions or some shit. I think he's going for that narrative, but I'm like, yeah, kids like technology, mate. It's nothing new. He uses technology, so he's kind of a hypocrite, I think. So that whole lyric, that bullshit. I think it has aged like milk in the Sahara. So it's definitely a poor lyric. But I personally, I'm not a huge lyric guy. I usually don't really care about lyrics. If they complement the singing and the melody of the main song, the main chord progression, then it's probably fine. As long as you're not named Rivers Cuomo and you're not singing Pinkerton, you're probably fine. But at some bands I do really cringe at the lyrics like that. But like with Weezer, like Weezer is just cringe the bands. Steven Wilson and Porcupine Tree is not as bad as that, but not many bands are that bad. That's cringy. Whether it's good or bad, that's up to you, but that's subjective. But yeah, Porcupine Tree. I think that for me, I do still like some songs. I do really love, like Anas. I think you say Anesthetize. I'm not sure how you say that song. Anesthesia. No, it's not with S. It's not Sia, but let's say Anesthetize. Anesthetize, that's probably still their best song. 70-minute epic prog song, and it doesn't really feel like a minute is wasted. So that is definitely a highlight of their career. I would call it their best song. I'm not a huge fan of Fear of a Blank Planet anymore because I do love that song. Like the centerpiece of that album is great. But you have some like really slow, sappy, like piano ballads on there, like Sentimental, and what else is on there? My Ashes is very emotional, slow. I do really like the closer, Sleep Together. I think that song sounds creepy and weird, especially live. I really love that vibe. Way Out of Here is good, but it's another one of those emotional songs where it's like just screaming, the title over and over and over again. I'm like, it's not really that diverse, mate. You know, and I think for prog rock, I think that Porcupine Tree is a bit too mellow for my taste. Nowadays, I just like some really wild, chaotic, just messy sounds that just blend into my psyche. And that's mainly what I like in music. Music that can distract me, that is loud, psychedelic, dense. Those are the main things that I like in music. And with Porcupine Tree, it's just a bit too, um, it's like that one album, like Voice 34. It's like they've taken medication or something, or like drugs. Like you're all highly meditated as fuck because you're on prescription pills or something like that. That's just how Porcupine sounds. That's just how this band sounds. Like you're prescribed a drug that calms the fuck out of you. That's just how this band sounds. And if you know me personally, that's probably how most people would describe me, as like a calm, collected person. So it's kind of weird that I love this weird, chaotic shit. Like, for example, I'm a fan of Lorna Shore, which is like a really like out there, chaotic, loud, obnoxious deathcore band. But I love them because they have these weird symphonic black metal elements. Kind of sounds like later era Emperor, but not shit. And a bit like Aquilus, if you know that, that's my personal favorite symphonic black metal band. It sounds a bit like Demi Borgir, that really over the top symphonic black metal sound, but with a deathcore twist. They are basically a deathcore band with symphonic black metal elements. I think it's really interesting personally, and because they blend those styles so seamlessly, it doesn't get boring for me. It never bores me. It always stays fun. So there's just a lot of music like that. Also, one that is fucking insane is I don't remember the title from my head, but the latest Ada Rook album, which is basically like this fucking insane sounding electro industrial singer. I think they identify as they them, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know Ada Rook, but they are. Their music sounds fucking insane, and that's why I love it. It just sounds batshit crazy. It sounds like it can explode at any time, and I just love that wild, chaotic, that unpredictable sound. That's just what I love in that kind of music, like Ada Rook. So I will definitely do a review on Ada as well. But now I'm doing Porcupine Tree because I've only heard that Ada Rook album, and I've essentially heard every Porcupine Tree album. So I'm like, yeah, I have to do this because I grew up with this shit. I'm still like that. I'm still like a really calm, collected person, as you can sense in my tone and in my speech pattern. Maybe you can recognize that. I'm not a really outspoken person like that. I'm not like my music, but mentally, maybe yeah, mentally I'm definitely insane, but I can compose myself. Let's say that. So I'm definitely more in that chaotic style, as far as the music goes. But Porkman Tree is definitely a calmer band that reflects my mood, and I did really love listening to them. Back in the day, like I mentioned, Anesthetize is great. There are some individual songs that I really like Time Flies. That's the last song I really dug from them. Before, I heard Bonnie the Cat, and I was like, this is like a shitty Tool ripoff. I don't need another Tool clone. So fuck off, Steven Wilson. You're not Maynard James Keenan. Fuck off. So yeah, I was like, nah, this ain't it, mate. Yeah, and after that, Steven Wilson did his solo stuff, and I'm actually still really into his like first two albums, especially the first one. If you play Insurgentes for me, I'm not sure how you say it, Insurgentes. I think it is I believe a Mexican word, because I believe Wilson crossed the border across Mexico, and he was like traveling there, and because of that inspiring trip, he called it Insurgentes or some shit like that. I just call it Insurgentes. However you want to call it, I really like that album. I personally am a huge fan of Insurgents, and I just really love the mood on it. I think that it has more of that style that I like in that later Steven Wilson era, because he still has a bit of that metallic element because of it came after Fear of a Blank Planet, but before the incident, so it was right sandwiched in that metallic era. So it still sounds a bit metallic, but it's also very poppy. It's also a bit shoegazy. It's also noisy, still in a very vanilla-esque way. It's not like it's not like Melt Banana, or it's not like what's that one? It's not like Big Black or Daughters. It's not like actual noise music, but there are elements of noise that distort the music, and I'm like, oh, that's cool. That's a cool sound. So I do like the experimentation that Stephen Wilson has, because I know that he has like Blackfield, I believe. Blackfield. He has like a pop band. Bass Communion. I think that's like an ambient band. I'm not aware. I'm not really familiar with all those bands, but I am aware that Stephen Wilson has multiple projects under his belt. So I know he does more shit besides Porcupine Tree and his own stuff. That's why he didn't get a Porcupine Tree album for over a decade. But I personally wasn't really looking forward to that, because when you listen to the incident, you're like, yeah, this band is just trying to repeat, the Deathwing, the In Absentia, and the Fear for Blank Planet sound again. And I'm like, yeah, you did it pretty much perfect on those three albums. Why would you do that metallic sound again? They did it on the incident again. And I'm like, yeah, another metallic Porcupine Tree album. I'm like, it's not interesting, mate. I do like it. I am a Porcupine Tree fan, so I do like that album, but it's it's nothing new. That's why they quit. Steven Wilson was like, yeah, I don't have anything to prove, so might as well break up the band, right? I do think that the live album of that is good. Octane Twisted. I think that's like an underrated deep cut that they have. They have some more underrated albums that are like compilations, like recordings, I believe. There's a lot of stuff, but the bands that have kind of replaced my interest in this band are, I think, Yes. Yes is just phenomenal. The Mars Volta, as far as prog rock goes, that like actual classic prog. Yes is my favorite band in that regard. Modern prog, Mars Volta, because they're fucking batshit insane. And like I said, I love chaotic music and the prog. I'm like, yeah, perfect. That's great. So I love Mars Volta. Actually, I don't think I have a vinyl of them, so I might purchase this soon, together with Appetite for Destruction and maybe a System of a Down. I don't think I have a System of a Down album. That's pretty wild. System of a Down coming soon, probably, because I'm a pretty big fan of that as well. Yeah, but overall, as far as prog rock goes, those are my preferred bands. The psych rock, that psychedelic sound. I have the Sound of Animals Fighting for that. I think that band is great. I have Ariel Pink, who's like a psychedelic pop artist that sounds a bit like, he has a bit of a new wave style and a bit psychedelic, like the Zombies. That really classic sound, maybe a bit of the Beach Boys. Yeah, he really has that psychedelic layering. And as far as that prog metal sound, I've always preferred Opeth personally. You can basically everything behind me, Opeth, Model of the Well, Agalog, if you can consider that prog. It's more like post metal, black metal, I would say. Even I would say I listen more to Tesseract nowadays. Kind of like a gent, like a the gent band. But yeah, overall, I do like, I do like this band. Otherwise, I wouldn't be making this video. But yeah, I've kind of grown out of them, nowadays. Also, if you want a modern space rock band that sounds like that, but it has some like balls to it, like some grit in this style, listen to Ocean Size. Not to shit on Steven Wilson. I do respect him as a musician, but his like space rock sound is like very ripped from Pink Floyd. It's not like, it's pretty obvious to me. There's no hiding that. So listen to Efflores, I believe it's called, and Frames by Ocean Size. Amazing albums, especially the first one, Efflores. Efflores is just amazing to me because it has Long Forgotten, which is the closing track. Women Who Love what was it again? Women who love drugs, who love men, I believe, something like that. That song is fucking amazing. It kind of combines both Porcupine eras because it has a very mellow psychedelic sound, but later it like really fucking tears the roof off. It just shreds your face off while still maintaining that psychedelic spacious rock sound that's this band is known for, I would say. And Oceanside somehow combines both eras into each other, which I think is perfect. I always wanted a Porcupine album like that, and they never gave it. I'm like, why is Steven Wilson dropping that space rock sound? Because I was gonna argue that The Sky Moves Sideways is like probably my favorite space rock album that I've heard personally. But then I heard like FRS, and I was like, wow, this album smokes any Porcupine album. So I'll definitely do an Ocean Size review or like an Ocean Size band review because I just love that band. I just absolutely love the sound, love the vocals, love the chord progression, love the songs, love the melody, just everything about it, man. I think it's fucking great. And it's mellow, but it's somehow also heavy. I'm like, it's perfect. It's always what I wanted. It's always what I was looking for. And to diversify from that, I will still listen to Porcupine. But unfortunately, I've kind of fallen out of favor. But yeah, definitely, Fear of Blank Planet is good. In Absentia, classic. Probably my personal favorite nowadays is Lightbulb Sun. That maybe always was my favorite. My favorite album from them. I just love She Moved On. Lightbulbs on the title track, I think is fucking great. So I still like this, man. I still really love some certain songs that they made. I think some songs that they've made are fucking great. Some of the best, like prog rock, psychedelic, spacious songs that I've heard, I like the songs that I mentioned, and Anesthetize, of course. Raging Music kind of pisses me off because, they have all the ocean size albums mentioned, but somehow the second and the third album are bolded, but not FRS, which is easily their best sounding album in my opinion. It's easily their finest hour. But yeah, I was kind of looking for the song because I was kind of looking at those post rock esque prog rock space rock bands. And like you can see, this album has them all. Prog, post, space, post-hardcore. I'm like, fuck. A space rock band that does post-hardcore. Sign me the fuck up, Goddamn. Alternative metal, space rock, alt rock, just great. Hardcore and space rock. I'm like, fuck, that's great. That's so good. It's like another Mars Volta. I'm in love. But yeah, fuck Porcupine. No, just kidding. But yeah, Ocean Size is fucking great. I'll probably do a review of them eventually when I've delved deeper into the discography. But I just love that first album. That first album is just magic to me. But yeah, that was basically my review. I do like the later or Steven Wilson albums as well. I want to say love, but I don't. I simply don't. I think they sound a bit too overproduced and too clean for my taste. Like I do love my prog a bit, like more psychedelic, a bit more chaotic, spacious, a bit more unpredictable. Like some King Crimson or Yes, Gentle Giant, because Gentle Giant is a weird ass freaky band. And I'm like, yeah, I like that weird unpredictable sound. So yeah, Gentle Giant, Octopus. Listen to that. That's pretty great. If you like this as well, I'm not shitting on anything. I like the shit. I like all that shit, But I love Ocean Size. I love Octopus by. I think it was called Octopus by. Squidders, I don't fucking know. Squidward. But yeah, my main recommendations for Porcupine Tree, or Steven Wilson as a whole, definitely in absentia. Fear of a Blank Planet. Those are the best Porcupine Tree albums, and Lightbulb Sun, and the first two Steven Wilson albums. So those are like 5 albums, I believe. So Insurgentes and Grace for Drowning, I think, is also pretty good. But Grace is a bit too over self-indulgent and a bit too long-winded for my taste. Insurgentes is just like a 50 minutes quick in and out. And it has a really unique atmosphere because I think that Steven Wilson recorded a lot of that album in that like Mexican area, where he was like patrolling and just kind of discovering, nature and the world. He was like traveling and like really discovering his own sound. So I think it sounds really interesting because of that. I don't think that his later albums really have that sound. So I really love that album. I think I even preferred over Fear for Blank Planet personally. And Anesthetize is definitely the best song that he ever made. That's definitely one of the best songs I've ever heard. If you go to like my top 100 favorite songs, I think that song is like in my top 20, maybe even almost in the top 10. That's how good it is. It's a fucking masterpiece. I'm not taking that away from Steven Wilson. That's an amazing song. But overall, I'm not. He hasn't really made an album where I'm like, oh fuck, this is all the way through great. So, for space rock, I prefer Ocean Size. For prog metal, I prefer Opeth's Model of the Well. Ariel, I think, is fucking great. I'll probably do a review on him as well pretty soon. What else? I'm just looking at my favorites list. Prog metal. Yeah, there's a lot of prog metal. Tool, if you can consider that. I consider them personally more alternative. I don't think that Tool is that complicated. I just think that stoners are freaked out by the old time signatures. But it's not difficult. It's not difficult music. But Tool's great. But yeah, there you go. There's like 3 prog metal bands too many, so there you go. But yeah, that was the video basically. That was basically everything I wanted to mention about these bands. That I can recollect. I haven't really listened to, like I said, the later Steven Wilson albums up until To the Bone, I believe. I listened to him, and then I was like, he became more pop centric, and I was kind of like, I don't care about poppy Steven Wilson. I do like pop music. I do, like I've mentioned a billion times, Kate Bush, Bjork. I love a band called the Delgados, which is like a chamber pop band. I love Shinsei Kamate-chan, which is like a really weird, abrasive noise pop band. So I do love, like I said, chaotic, wild music, even in pop. I love pop music like that. But, Steven Wilson is just like, yeah, I like ABBA. I like ABBA. I like Kate Bush. And he's just replicating that sound. And I'm like, it's fine. It's fine. I don't mind that, but it's nothing mind-blowing. It's nothing abrasive or wild. It's like a 50-year-old dude making pop music. I'm like, it's like Peter Gabriel again, but no one sings as bad as Peter Gabriel. So I'm like, yeah, you can be worse than that, but there you go. Before I like piss off the entire prog nation. I'm not into that Genesis shit, but there you go. If you've seen my bands I dislike, then you know that. But there you go. But yeah, there you go. Like, subscribe, comment. What you think about this video? What would you like to see next? What do you think of Porcupine Tree? Which songs would you say are your favorites? Do you have bands that you would recommend to me in this style? I know that a lot of people say the Pineapple Thief is great. I haven't really listened to like similar sounding bands like this, but Opeth is like my main go. That's like my favorite band, so I'm like, yeah. Do I need more than that? But to diversify could be fun. But yeah, let me know what you like. Let me know what you would like to see on the channel, and I will see you in the next video. I will see you in the next video. Take care, peace, and have a nice day.